It's time for world politics, and as usual, a lot of interesting things are going on in the political landscape. Earlier today, we were talking on the World Edition about the fact that ICE apparently is saying that they will not be wearing masks in California, and then also the health report is not going to be helping happen this year, and a number of other things that have been historical that are not going to be taking place, and all along those lines. And of course, we do have the UN having discussions around a Palestinian state. I think there's 150 countries that have recognized Palestine or something along those lines. And I think Trump was speaking before the UN earlier today, and I'm sure he's not one that wants to recognize Palestine and all along those lines. So we'll see what folks have to say about that and other political issues. And I've got Jim Ead with me, so I'm going to bring him on, and we'll see what other things are going on in the world that we want to talk about. And all along those lines, I actually saw an interesting article before I came on here, Jim. And it's always interesting. And I know that you are a person like myself that probably considers themselves more spiritual than religious, but I definitely think that there is something greater than us in the world and all along those lines. But you got some of these religious people that pick a date and they think that something's going to happen on that particular date and everything along those lines. And supposedly today is one of those days. So if you went down near your street in California and cars started disappearing, apparently there are some people that were thinking today or sometime in the near future the rapture was supposed to be taking place. But last time I checked, I hadn't seen a lot of people just up and disappearing. But doesn't mean that it won't happen. But last time I checked, I think the Bible and other things says only he will know the day and time and place or something along those lines. I forget the exact phrase, but it's something like that in the Bible that basically says that man can only guess and they won't know the exact day or time when this takes place and everything like this. But I didn't know if you had heard, because I'm sure the news media has been somewhat over this and everything, this not idea that, and there have been several of them in the 21st century that were supposed to be the end times. And even if you talk to some spiritual people, they'll tell you that they feel that we are in the end times because of things that are going on, whether it's Russia or whether it's the various wars or whether it's a number of other things. But like I said, I'm 63 years old, and they've been saying that for all of my life. And I think you're a little bit older and everything, and they've probably been saying that all during your life as well. So what's your take on this notion?
Well, my grandmother thought that Vatican II was the end of the world because, she said that if Mass wasn't said in Latin, it wasn't Mass. So, yeah, this kind of prediction has been going on as long as history is. Sorry, and let me get rid of that. And I think that I don't want to disparage anyone's beliefs, but these are the types of things that I ignore because it's not worth me getting upset about it. It's not worth me paying attention to it because if I do pay attention to it, I might pass judgment on other people.
Right.
And that's I'm trying to avoid doing that as much as I can. Some of the headlines cause me to do it anyways, even against my better judgment. But it's one of those things where let them believe what they want, whatever works for them. It's fine with me. But if you start that kind of conversation with me, it won't be a long conversation.
I understand that. We got Sasha with us as well, so I'll bring Sasha into the conversation.
Gotcha.
He's here as well and everything, and we got a lot of things going on in the war. It looks like there's been action around Crimea, so that's a positive development in Ukraine and all along those lines. So they may be actually able to get back Crimea from Russia's stronghold and all along those lines. So you think Crimea will fall back into Ukrainian hands in the next week or two, Sasha? Because that's one of the things that I did see. There was a positive development.
Next week or two, I'm not so sure. But what I know and what I saw, the pictures of Crimea is going in flames and smoke. Almost every large building, the bases, mm, refineries, just name it.
Well,
I
so
think it's just a matter of time when they will be weakened as much as the Ukrainian army, without the great losses, could reoccupy Crimea and destroy the Crimean Bridge. And I think Trump is right. It's one of the exceptions when I agree with him that Ukraine will be able to return all its territories and get Russians out of the country once and for all. I think that's going to happen, and not in 3 years or 5 years, but maybe even by the end of this year.
Speaking of things going on in politics, I know that Trump was speaking in front of the UN. I just saw just now that Ryan Russo was found guilty in the 2024 Trump assassination attempt. And then apparently after he was found guilty, he tried to stab himself in the neck and everything like that. So I guess he's waiting for his sentencing and didn't want to wait for the sentencing. It sounded like he was trying to sentence himself and everything like that. But apparently it was not a successful stab in the neck. And I guess that he will be getting his verdict and his sentence will be coming out at some point or another, and we'll find out how long he'll get in jail. But Trump tells world leaders their countries are going to hell in a competitive UN speech. So apparently he just did this recently. So he took a shot at the UN, climate change, and immigration policy. So he slammed the United Nations right there in the United Nations. So basically he told all the countries of the world that they're going to hell. So what is our thoughts around this? Because apparently he just did this like not that long ago, like within the last several hours and everything. So he's
Wow.
not exactly becoming friends of the world.
I think he should get UN hell out of the United States and demolish this stupid building and build something.
Well, he's not known for his tact, and I don't think that telling the UN that in the UN that all their countries are going to hell, it makes him a prophet. And I think although Trump has been very good about dividing our country, he's been very good about uniting the rest of the world against us. So this is one more thing that seems to me to be unifying force against the United States. But who wants to be told they're going to hell? I don't think that's going to play well overseas.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
think
we're talking today something about $17 trillion collected in the tariffs for U.S. Revenue. How that number could be in 3-4 months, $17 trillion again? I can't figure out that.
And who's paying it?
yeah,
It's not the
Well,
countries that the tariffs are slapped on.
No, paying, who it's U.S. Uh, distributors or
Importer.
importers and American people who are the end buyers of these products. But I can't believe that the number could be $17 trillion in a matter of few months.
Well,
that's what he's claiming.
it's not wise to pay attention to the numbers that Trump tells you, because he can contradict himself without worrying of any repercussions.
Well, speaking of
Tomorrow.
contradicting himself, apparently he did that recently. Sasha, one of the stories that I believe some of the other networks, including NBC, are reporting is that in a major shift, Trump is saying that Ukraine can win back all of its territories taken by Russia, not just Crimea, but the rest of them as well. And we know that that wasn't what the song he was singing before, but now he's saying that his buddy Putin can actually lose all of that territory that was taken by Russia. I know Crimea was part of that. I know there were other parts of it as well. So he's saying that Ukraine's going to win it back home.
Well, maybe that's intimidation strategy on Putin to show him that he's better to come to the table and negotiate something. But what I hear from trusted sources that Ukraine is no longer interested in negotiating anything because they can indeed win this war. And if that's the case, why do they need to negotiate anything?
Yeah.
And on what basis do you think that Ukraine is winning the war? Is it because of their superior technology, like use of drones?
Many reasons. Superior technology, that's true. Number two, they have in its fighting spirit. For example, they now turn in their 82nd Brigade. Now, what is this? It's 2,000. Um, you call them like fighting machines. There are people who went through many years of war against Russians and know well how to fight Russians and, most importantly, how to kill Russians. They have all ammunition possible to fight, including British tanks Challenger, including the latest in the ammunition and weapons ever the army can have. And their reason to be there is to go through the front lines and kick Russians as far as possible or kill them. One of two has to happen. They are already third day in fighting, and everywhere they are, Russians are running away. They're not fighting them. They are running away as fast as they can. Probably they could beat some world and Olympic records in running. If that's the case.
But the news about Crimea is quite surprising to me because I thought that they could retake some of the land that was more recently taken. But I didn't think, because Russia depends on Crimea for North Sea access, or for the Baltic Sea access, and so it's like a, you know, it would seem to me that they would keep a stranglehold on that. But you know, this is a real turning point in my mind. Do
Yeah,
you
it's
see it the
very
same?
important. That's right. You're absolutely hit it correctly. The Crimea now is complete devastation there. They cannot resupply the Russian army in the south of Ukraine, what they did normally. And it seems to me that their Russian front line, will fall apart, and it could be days from now. It could be even tomorrow, for example. I really don't see any reason how Russians will be able to withhold their front. They are getting exhausted. The mobilization is not happening. The army that invaded Ukraine in 2022, no one is alive. All of them who invaded Ukraine, all of them were killed. So now it's a new people who are coming, who don't know nothing about the war, have no training. They're being thrown in the Iranian meat grinder, and that's why Russia has lost 1,000,000 and almost 100,000 in 3.5 years. That's Russian losses. That's serious.
Well, it looks like Trump might have lost at least one battle because ABC later on today will have Jimmy Kimmel come back on his show. So will you be watching that, Jim, and everything? I think that some of the Sinclair group, which is a more conservative group, might not be bringing him back, but ABC is ending his suspension and his show will return today, which is Tuesday. So this evening he'll be back on, and who knows what kind of fun things he'll say about Trump, or maybe he'll just leave it alone so he doesn't get resuspended. So are you going to be watching to see what he says?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's going to make a lot of jokes about J.D. Vance. Leave Trump alone. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. I would never put anything past Jimmy Kimmel, and I do think that it's a victory for free speech. The censorship that this implied, it just was beginning. We're just beginning to see what the hold that Trump wants on media. He's trying to cancel MSNBC. He's trying to cancel Act Blue, which is one of the Democrat fundraisers. So, the idea of opposition to him is not, it's like an enemy. So he's trying to use all his presidential power to squash anybody who says anything he doesn't like, which is counter to everything this country stands for. I just don't think that people will put up with it. But I was surprised that he got reelected. So I'm not sure. I'm going to wait and see. But I do think that Jimmy Kimmel will be must watch TV.
It's going to be much watch TV this evening. I
Yeah,
know I plan to watch it and see what he comes up with, and all along those lines. And in that space, I did see that Trump is speaking of things that he's trying to change. We were talking earlier today about the mask rule for the folks that are in ICE and how they don't necessarily have to. That they can go ahead and continue to wear a mask and everything like that. But it also looks like he's trying to change the lottery system for the HB1 visa. So there's a lottery system, and he wants to change it and change the rules to fit his friends and everything like that. So it looks like he's creating his own rule around who can come in on these visas. So this ought to be interesting to see what the Trump rules are. I know that tomorrow y'all have your investment show, and I know that you'll probably be there with Sasha and everything. But there's this week that I'm not familiar with because I don't follow the stock the way that y'all do and everything like that. But what is Fat Bear Week? So apparently it's something having to do with the stock, and I've never heard of this expression. So if y'all can explain to me and the listeners what Fat Bear Week is and how it implies with the stock market, it would be great because I just saw that in the financial news.
Oh, fat bear is a new term to me. Typically, it would mean that they expect a bear market, which when you're bullish, you think that things are going to go up. When you're bearish, things are going to go down. So fat bear seems that implies that things are going to go down a lot. Now we've had a recent run up led by the Magnificent Seven and primarily AI related stocks. Nvidia is the prince of that. Everyone that follows the stock market knows that Nvidia has coattails that it pulls up a lot of companies, but older chip makers like AMD are doing very, very well. I don't see any reason for any skepticism about that because I base that on revenue generation, and these companies are still generating revenue. So I think of the overall market, however, has been a little bit more volatile, and there may be a lowering in stock prices that even the top companies can't pull them up. And so you may see an overall lowering, but the stock prices are setting records right now. So it's perfectly natural to think that they can't keep setting records every day. What goes up must come down.
Jim, it says there's something very interesting going on. That company like Oklo, that's a symbol. This company, they're going to put some nuclear generating devices for AI. And their first the factory, or how you want to call it, will be available by the year 2030. Before that, the company has zero revenue, just a big fat zero. And their stock is valued at probably well over $50 billion with no revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just ended up today. Even I bought a few times puts on Okla, but because I understand that there is a herd mentality and stock may run further, during the day when I'm making some money on it, I just sell it back to the market. I did the same today, and I was right because by the end of the day, Okla went even higher. I'll tell you that where it's closed. It's closed at $142.65. It was up 1.67%. And guess what? After market, it's up yet another 75 cents, and for another half percentage point or
What's
so.
the symbol again? It's OC?
OK.
Okay.
Oklo.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I don't recommend anybody to buy that stock. So please don't listen to my.
Yeah, it's doubled in 2 weeks. That's the kind of company that I avoid because of the revenue, the lack of.
You don't know what to do with it. Okay, 100. What is it? 143. So is it going to be even? If you believe so, yes, you can pick up some shares and make a little bit of money. But fundamentally, I think it should go down to $85 probably, maybe even less. So this is
Yeah.
why I'm buying puts all the time, and
Well,
I
we talked
think
about a fat bear, but that could be a bad beat.
It could
Investing
be a
in that.
bad beat and everything. And by
yeah,
the way,
no,
I double checked it and everything. They put it right next to the stock market, which is why I thought it had something to do with the stock market. But apparently it doesn't. It actually has to do with real bears in Alaska and everything. And apparently there's one of those lovely online contests where they're trying to find the fattest bear literally out there and everything because they're eating all that salmon, so they're trying to figure out what they
Yeah,
can do. Apparently, this is a contest that's been going on since
it's
2014.
like the biggest pumpkin festival.
Yeah, the biggest
It's the time of year. It's the bears get all fat so they can hibernate. So
Sure.
And so they're gonna have a contest to decide
Oh.
who's the fattest one out of them and everything like that. And apparently it's a big contest. And maybe the Bears are even proud as to who they can win or not win and everything like that. So you got to wonder whether the Bears even know that they're part of a contest.
So animals don't know crap, but when we start successfully being able to put chips in brains, we're going to start having animals who understand.
that's why chip companies are doing so well.
That's why those
Yeah.
chip companies are doing real well. Hey,
It's a possible future.
Okay, see, people like individual investors, they are pushing the market higher and higher with stock like Okla, Nvidia, some other well-known chip stocks. And I'm not comparing Okla to Nvidia, mind
No.
you. Don't
NVIDIA has revenue.
think about it. Yeah. Now, what's interesting though, that the companies, traditional American companies like General Motors or even JP Morgan, investors, retail investors, they're not rushing in. So
Right.
institutional investors selling the stocks very difficult because there are no retail to sell it to. So they hold it for half the day, and at the end of the day, they start selling it anyway. Now, with institutional investors, they are, when there is a volume in the morning, they sell it in the morning. If there is no volume, they're waiting until volume will materialize, maybe after afternoon or something, and then they start unloading. But now, everyday institutions are unloading stocks. That's definitely
So
obvious.
they're doing that and everything.
my wife and I have a couple people who manage some of our money. And of course, they want you to be in stocks because that's their business. But we've been calling we call them up and we say, look, the U.S. seems to be being run by an idiot. Shouldn't we get into more international stuff? And what they tell us generally, well, one of them tells us is, no, you're in these fundamental companies like General Motors, like these strong blue chip companies, and then you'll be fine.
Horrible.
That's
Horrible.
interesting and
It's
everything.
better. It's
Hey.
better to go with gold and silver than to General Motors. That's for sure. That would be my choice.
So maybe Rick has to go to gold and silver and everything. Hey, Rick, you study a lot with medicine. I think you might have been on earlier because I did not make it with Dr. Patmos, but I was just wondering how concerned and
Well, that's
maybe
tomorrow, right? That's tomorrow.
That's right. That's on Wednesday. That's on tomorrow. But and maybe we'll ask him about it on tomorrow. But apparently, there's infection rates from a drug-resistant nightmare bacteria that's going to come up almost 70% between 2019 and 2023. And this is according to a new report from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention scientists. So even though the CDC, like a lot of government agencies, has been streamlined, they did have an article that this
You could call it streamlined, or you could call they fired all the competent people.
right. And apparently this
But-
so
and I don't know about the new bacteria. I can tell you about an old bacteria, which is the staph bacteria, also called MRSA. Also, in olden days, they might call it gangrene,
right.
though gangrene is a more umbrella term. But, we've been throwing antibiotics
Flesh eating.
at infections some for, I don't know, 80 years, say. And bacteria has developed resistance to the stuff. And so then you get antibiotic resistant bacteria that can kill you.
And
And so,
apparently that's what this is, because the article said that bacteria with this gene were once considered exotic and linked to a small number of patients who received medical care, ironically overseas and everything like that. But they said it's likely many people are unrecognized carriers of the drug-resistant bacteria, which could lead to community spread, is what the CDC scientists said. So that could even play out in the doctor's office. So you might go to the doctor's office and somebody with the infection might spread it to you and everything. So it's definitely.
So, given the current climate, you have to, if you really don't want to get sick off of stuff, you have to be a little bit of a lunatic. Frickin'. So I avoided COVID for 5.5 years because I mask up at the gym, I get vaccinated. Then we're flying back. There was a leg of a flight from Chicago to LA. And the kid next to me, I didn't know him. He was coughing the whole time, and I didn't have the bad manners to grab a flight attendant and say, I don't like this freaking coughing kid, move me. And because of my good manners, maybe I could have caught it at the wedding we were at. A couple days later, I got COVID. So, if you can catch it in a doctor's office, when you go to the doctor's office, be masked up, because there are a lot of doctors and support staff who are kind of a-holes and don't believe in masks and carry the hand sanitizer, try not to touch stuff, sit away from other people, do all this stuff that makes you feel weird because it seems like extreme, but it's not given our situation.
Well, the other thing that we shouldn't forget is the streamlining of the CDC is part of the dumbing down of America that we're trying to do to get away from science. And when you get bacteria-resistant viruses mutate and they have variations, and so these will not go away. They will come, and there will be new, and we will need new drugs to address them. And if you're exporting your brightest and denying the brightest from coming in, you're not going to be able to adjust. You're not going to be agile enough to adjust to the new circumstances. And I can remember that Trump criticized Barack Obama because he didn't leave him any vaccine against COVID. Well, COVID didn't happen under Barack Obama. That was a phenomena that we did not encounter. It was a global pandemic, but we have various responses, and COVID has mutated into various variations, and it's come and gone. So
no, not
it looks like another one of Trump's
it's still here.
It's still here, but in a variation of the original one.
Yeah, so the original might be gone, but there are different variations and everything like that. It looks like one of Trump's, and we know that he's still involved with the Epstein case, but one of his people that was a backer of his that's running for Wisconsin governor has apparently been caught doing similar stuff because he's been following sexually explicit accounts online. So this might be interesting to see how this plays out in that Wisconsin governorship race, because apparently he's running, and I guess they found him maybe on Pornhub or maybe on some of the other websites, but he's following various sexually explicit accounts and everything. So
yeah, I don't know what counts against people anymore. Like you got this Tom Homan guy who's the Trump's border czar. So there's a big story that Tom Homan in October of last year, that somebody got a tip at the FBI that this guy accepts bribes. So the FBI is like, well, maybe we should see. So they go out and they give him $50,000, I think, in a paper bag, and he takes the money, and it's all on video. And then Trump becomes president, and he has the investigation shut down.
Right.
And Megyn Kelly yesterday said, I don't care if he takes bribes. I don't care what the evidence is. He's a great man. He's a gift to America. This is the guy who's like one of the guys who's out there saying we need to be mean to immigrants. Trump, like, if ever the Epstein files come out and it turns out that Trump did some kind of horrible diddling of underage girls, which is statutory rape, a bunch of MAGA will say, yeah, but he's old now. He can't do it anymore. And B, he is our guy. And sometimes when you're a once in a million genius, you got to
Well, we're seeing
they
that
won't
here.
use
We're
it
seeing
all.
that here, Rick. We're seeing that here in North Carolina because a certain major coach has got a young girlfriend, 50 years or so his junior, and a lot of his opponents are picking on him, calling it a irresponsible relationship or an illegal relationship, or giving it all kinds of
Okay,
things.
so
So they're
Bill
basically using
Belichick
it to
is
taunt him.
all right. Bill Belichick is 72 or 73. His
I think
girlfriend's
he's
like
close to. I think
24.
he's like 75.
Okay, so how's his team doing? Because that's
They're
more.
only 2-2. They're not doing good.
Well, that's better than you'd expect from the first game they played, where they got walloped. So,
Yeah, and then they got walloped again the last game. They got walloped by two. The University of Central Florida walloped them, and TCU walloped them, and then they went out
but
and beat
Belichick
Virginia.
himself, I've heard him in an interview saying, "Well, we're not good. We're getting
Right.
better, but we're not good." He's he knows football, and I think that it's a whole new skill dealing with college football with the transfer portal, where
Absolutely.
I think that athletes can take a bigger, better offer at any time. It's like
And they can
free
leave. They can leave in the
agency.
middle of the season because I think 3 of his players have already left, including I want to say maybe a wide receiver or somebody like that. So he's already got people that are bailing because of the publicity, because they don't like him, because of the way that the team is going. So you can live in the middle of the season as well. I got this California story that I'd love to hear your thoughts around, Jim and Rick. But apparently, the Trump administration took $2.4 billion from California's high-speed railway, and now I guess it wants to give it to other people and everything like that. So what's going on here? How do you take
All right, so
2.4?
California has been trying. California is a long ass state. It's like 800 miles from the top to the bottom. And we've been trying to put a high speed rail that would get us from our two biggest cities between San Francisco and LA, which is, I don't know what, 350 miles, that would get us there in like 3 hours. So you don't have to mess around with getting on a plane and all that. And progress has been slow. They've only built, I don't know how, like they've been working on it for 20 years. They've spent billions of dollars. There's no place where you can take high speed rail from one city to another. It's been shitty, but
You need all the municipalities to line up, and they don't. And they some say yes, some say no, and then you can't do it. So it's
How much is it just
nightmare.
Jim? How much is it just the municipalities? Because I know here in North Carolina they wanted high-speed rail between the Raleigh-Durham area and Charlotte, and ironically, one of our major universities, Duke, is the one that has stopped it because of various reasons, including I think that they feel it will impact them fiscally and financially and everything like that. So, are y'all's institutions also part of the problem? Because I don't know enough about California politics to know.
I haven't heard of any institutional involvement. It's been at the municipal level, as far as I know. But also, it is one of the things that Trump seems to misunderstand, the idea that Congress has the purse strings, and it's not part of the executive branch to levy tariffs. It's not part of the president's thing to take money away from something that Congress has approved and put it to some other use. These are no-nos, and presidents who do that sort of thing have suffered consequences in the past. But Trump feels that there are no consequences because he was convicted of 31 felonies and still got a reelection.
34, but okay.
Oh, 34?
And apparently that's what he's doing because
Let's talk about high-speed rail for a sec. The U.S. is less set up for high-speed rail than maybe some other countries because we've lagged. We thought that highways were going to do the job for us, so we failed to modernize railroads for the past 100 years. And B, the spaces that have to be covered in the U.S. are just gigantic.
Yeah, Japan has great high-speed railroad, but the length that they have to go is much different.
Like if you look at Italy, it's crazy how small Italy is. All of Italy, the whole country, maybe not all of it, but almost all of it would fit inside California. And so you build a train. Italy has great high-speed rail. And you build a train and it goes 80 miles in, I don't know, 60 minutes. and you go between one beautiful historic city like Milan to, I don't know, to Venice in no time. You're sipping coffee, but the reward is all you have to do is build a thing that goes 80 miles. And like talking about California, you're building a thing that has to go 350 miles, and you have to kiss ass, like Jim said, to all these little communities in between. So the last time I saw a map of it, it's got this weird zigzaggy route.
It's hard to get up to the high speeds if you're zigging and zagging.
Yeah. I mean, it almost makes you want to hire Elon Musk.
You gotta do all of that and everything
like Elon Musk has a giant tunnel driller that he calls it the boring company because they bore through the earth. It almost makes you want to hire him to go underground for the whole freaking thing, and give him another, I don't know, $12 billion.
Jim and Rick, that's the question. But Jim and Rick, that's the thing that I don't understand, and maybe y'all can explain to me, because what I understand, even from talking to people that are engineers as well as other folks that are in transportation modes and transportation research and everything, is that a lot of the rails existed because America at one time was a rail country and everything. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of these rails are now buried, and you'd have to unbury them and try to reconfigure them, because I know even Durham was a rail town at one time, the town that I'm in and everything. Yeah. But some of these rails are actually now buried and covered over by new apartment complexes and by office businesses and stuff like that. So you would have to find a way to redirect them, those existing rails that might be fixed.
So there's a movie called Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes.
Which is about LA used to have an excellent trolley system covering the whole frickin' town in the 1920s. And then the automobile companies came in, they bought the trolley companies and shut them down so that people would have to use cars to buy tires, buy gasoline, buy
all the rubber companies were in favor.
And in the 50s, Eisenhower gave the U.S. the highway system, which has been beautiful for us. If you don't mind that, the cars pumping out, all sorts of exhaust, and also that you have to spend, an exorbitant amount of money. Every family has to have a car, or one car for every adult.
If you don't mind the cost of the cars, and if you don't mind the fact that it was an intentional, I would argue, both a class and a race effort with the highway system, because a lot of the highways were intentionally put through both not just minority neighborhoods, but poor neighborhoods. That's why I said that it wasn't strictly race; it was both race and class.
Because poor neighborhoods don't know how to fight City Hall. Right. There's another thing goes on in the city of LA, and I'm sure a lot of cities. It's very hard to fire a public school teacher or principal, even if they suck. So they have a thing called the Dance of the Lemons, and parents who know what they're doing complain about an incompetent administrator. That administrator gets moved to a school where the parents don't speak English. Then they don't know who to complain to. And you're talking about like the most famous example of using highways to screw over people is Robert Moses in New York.
I was going to say his name earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a guy who was a great engineer who had it in for Black people and other minorities, and he ran a ton of highways straight through those neighborhoods.
About him, that I read a long time ago, and it is an amazing thing to have it just spelled out, all of the things he did and the rationale for it, and including the anti-minority sentiment, and and it's also, there was people, if you knew where the railroad was going to go, they would buy the land for cheap and then sell it at a great profit.
Oh yeah.
These people have been doing things that have been self-serving for a long time, even when you think that.
Wait a minute, you mean Trump wasn't the first robber baron? Because I think of Trump as a robber baron.
But the first time he was investigated by the FBI in 1974 was for racism and renting. He and his dad were subject to complaints about that, and so the FBI set up some fake apartment wannabe renters. They'd send in white couples and say, "You got any apartments?" And the Trumps were like, "Yeah, come on in." They'd send in a black couple, and suddenly there were no apartments. And so They were sued by the FBI or the Department of Justice, and they had to settle. This was
Yeah. They literally had C on applicant forms, and C didn't stand for average; it stood for colored.
Yeah,
and yeah, so this was running afoul of the law for 50 years.
He was taught how to do things by his father, and his father thought if you paid taxes, you were a loser. And you know how often that Trump uses the word loser. You know, that
and
was
the grandpa. The grandpa was there's a photo of the grandpa at a Klan rally in, I don't know, the 20s or the 30s. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, a lot of those people would sometimes do things to try to appease the citizens and everything. Because even at the Cultural Arts Center I work, we have a picture of Mr. Duke, and Mr. Duke was considered one of the milder slave owners and everything. But there's also a plaque dedicated to Julius Carr, and Julius Carr was known as a robber baron, and definitely one of those folks, kind of like those Trumps of his era and everything. And he's also the person connected to I think it's called Son of Sam, which was a kind of Klan memorial at the UNC and everything. But he bragged about whipping his slave woman and everything, so whipping her to the point that her clothes were ripped to shreds and everything like that, and all along those lines. But because it's a history.
I lived within walking distance of Stanford University, and Stanford was part of the robber barons. You know, it wasn't the slavery issue, but, you know, it was like that's who you had to deal with when you were wanting to make your fortune in those days. So you had to deal with that. You had to rub elbows with those guys. So you probably had to show up to those meetings if you wanted to do business. And
there's a saying that every great fortune is evidence of a great crime.
Yep, I've heard that.
But it's why we need a time machine, so we can go back and clue these guys in as to like how to heal their reputation. Like Thomas Jefferson, you send a time traveler back and you say, just marry the slave that you're in love with, apparently, because you keep having kids with her. Just marry her. And yeah, you'll get a lot of shit from your bros, but in the future, you'll be a hero.
Yep, that would work and everything. Hey, Rick, we were talking before you got on about Jimmy Kimmel and the fact he's going to be on the air later on today. What do you think Jimmy Kimmel is going to do when he comes on? Because you worked with the man for a number of years and everything. So what is your take on what we can expect from
whatever
Jimmy?
He does, it will be funny, which is his job. Kimmel has at least 12 writers. Plus, he will probably be getting calls from Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert and all his friends across, and they will have suggestions. And, you know, his guest for tonight, I don't know if it's his only guest, is Gavin Newsom. But he might have some other celebrities show up in solidarity.
Absolutely. That's what I would expect, but who knows?
But he's got a bunch of really clever people, and he is not afraid to ask for a ton of ideas from them. And that's the way, there's another show, a late night show on Fox called Gutfeld, which is Greg Gutfeld, a Fox host, and they decide, well, you know, all the MAGAs don't watch late night talk shows anymore because they're pissed at, you know, that they make fun of Trump. So let's do our own. But that show, compared to the other shows, is terrible because they don't give themselves a chance not to suck, because all the other shows have a dozen writers and they will go through like, you know, they'll submit ideas and then somebody will say, we need more ideas because none of these. And so you just keep doing round after round. But Gutfeld has like 4 writers maybe, and maybe 2 of them are stand-ups, and Gutfeld is not a stand-up. He's a former guy who, you know, just kind of, he wasn't known for being a comedian. And so they don't work hard enough to make it really funny. Instead, it's kind of convivial. It's a bunch of people who have the same politics sitting around kind of happily discussing stuff.
I'm surprised he's not Secretary of State.
Wait till after the midterms.
Yeah, because he does seem to hire a lot of people that are coming from his supporter base and everything to be 23
people who work for Trump used to work for Fox.
Yeah.
But but Kimmel will he's had a week to come up with stuff, he and his people, and so I'm expecting it to, he's experienced in coming up with funny stuff for big events. He's hosted the Oscar 4 times. He's hosted the Emmys. He's hosted the ESPYs.
Oh yeah, he's hosted a bunch of great things and everything. I got a question for y'all about Fox, because I know that even here on our network, there have been people that have approached Sasha, and Sasha was here earlier, so I'm not speaking out of school and everything like that, as well as Jonathan Lockwood and our good friend Ivan from Ukraine about possibly trying to get on Fox. So what do you think our friends here on Pod TV would do as Fox commentators? And do you think that they could get a job? Because I know Jonathan wants a job in the White House and everything. But what do you think of the possibilities of our good friends getting on Fox and everything with their Ukraine show?
I don't know where Fox has a bunch of arms. Fox has streaming stations. And so, I'm sure that you don't make it onto Fox News right off the bat. It's like Fox has farm teams, so they might get on it, and there might be room for them somewhere there. And if they're, able to speak off the cuff, fairly well, and if their politics are interesting to, Fox management, maybe.
Yeah, but that's the key. That's the kicker. It's got to be politically correct in terms of Fox political correctness.
Not entirely. So Fox likes to somewhat, their slogan used to be fair and balanced. So they do like to make a gesture in that direction. Like but there's the show The Five, right, and often one of the five is somebody who leans less rightward, like Jessica Tarlov is a pretty effective, spokesperson for, liberal ideas. And every time she's on that show, Twitter goes crazy with, I hate Jessica, the people, why she needs to, be thrown into the sun. And, so there is room for the occasional.
Speaking of liberal people and everything, there's some people that are being critical. And like I said, I think she's going to come next month. I want to say the middle of the month, and I'm hoping that I can go see her. I got to see what my other work schedules look like and everything. But people are being critical of Kamala Harris because of her book, because she's basically said that I didn't have that much time, and she's critical of some other things. So has anybody had a chance to read her book or hear her?
No, but I saw her interviewed, and I know what the sound bites are. Yeah. And so 107 days is 15 weeks. It's 3.5 months. And she says that wasn't enough time. And that while she thought Biden was a good, competent president, the entire time she thought the people around him and the campaign managers weren't good. And they left her in a hopeless situation.
Yeah, and there is an element of truth to that. And the thing that I just read an article about it. I didn't see an interview. Was that he had his campaign skills had diminished, and they weren't being honest about that until it was too late. And she didn't go through the primaries, for example, and that was an essential part of the electoral process, is going through the primaries, debating your opponents, and that's a huge thing to overcome, not being through that process, and was used very effectively against her. So, I'm not saying that she would have won if she had started from, if Biden had decided not to campaign and she had started earlier. But her chances would have been.
But she had a huge hurdle. She had a huge, numbers hurdle to overcome, because she was beaten by Trump by a little less than 1.5%, which is about 2.4 million votes. But even if she'd gotten more popular votes, Hillary beat Trump by 2.85 million, still wasn't enough to win the Electoral College.
Right.
So she needed to get, at least 6-7 million more votes than she did. And Trump's people, they didn't get him a ton more votes, but they were really successful at suppressing the Democratic vote.
Yes.
People were too bummed out to show up at the polls.
That's precisely right. There's a sense of apathy out there, especially among the young. And usually we look to the young to affect change. But the young right now are pretty checked out. I'm generalizing, of course, but many of them think it doesn't matter. Well, I think that the last term and what will be 8 years of Trump should show you that it does matter. You get the government you deserve. Show up and vote. And, you can do it by mail, although Trump is trying to stop that as well. My wife and I have been voting by mail for a long time. You don't even
me too. Us too. Yeah, it's harder to mess with votes by mail because you're dealing with a paper ballot, and you can't. It's harder to flip a paper ballot to the other guy.
Right. Yeah, and this whole idea of election fraud. The only people that I know of that are convicted of it have been Republicans in North Carolina.
Well, so the Heritage Foundation, we've talked about this, which is they're the authors of Project 2025, which is Trump's plan to dismantle liberal America, replace it with, chaos. They have a thing called the Election Integrity Project. And they track all proven cases of election fraud over the past 40 years. And even this hyper-conservative organization shows votes are roughly 1 in a million. Never enough to flip an election, literally 1 in a million, because it's a high-risk, low-reward crime. It's a crime that can get you put away for 3 to 5 years if you're in the wrong state. And if you're going to do something that can get you put away for 3 to 5 years, it should probably be knocking over a bank, because then maybe you get away with $12,000. You do election fraud, all you do is cast one more vote for your person. The reward is piddly, so very few people do it, and often when they do it, they're confused.
People can be confused, Rick. Every time I think about the reward of knocking off a bank, I think of an incident that happened here in Durham centuries ago. Well, not centuries, but decades ago, because I think it was about 1 or 2 decades ago. But there was a gentleman, I want to say it was a SunTrust. It might have been a CCB, but he knocked off a bank, and it was when we had our bus terminal even closer to downtown. I mean, it's still close to downtown, but it was even closer to downtown at that time and everything along those lines. And to this day, I still cannot figure it out. If you're going to knock off a bank, Jim, and everything, don't you think you should know the schedule? Because he was caught at the bus terminal because he knocked off the bank and he did not have an escape route because he was trying to escape.
There's no such thing as a getaway bus driver.
Yes. LA, for a long time, was the national capital of bank robberies, because we have a ton of freeways. And so, there are probably hundreds of bank branches that are within a quarter mile of a freeway on-ramp. And when you're on the freeway, until lately, but nobody should be robbing banks anymore, because they don't have.
Nobody should rob banks. There's other things that you can rob and everything like that, and do it probably even legally and everything. But like I said, that was one of them dumb criminal moves, because the highway, even now and then, is only maybe a mile or 2 away. He probably could have walked to the highway quicker than it took him to get to the bus and wait for the bus terminal where they found him and arrested him with the bag of the money. So, like I said, but he wasn't the only dumb criminal. I think there was also a guy that tried to rob a convenience store, tried to go through the the vent system and got stuck. So they found him dead in the vent.
Those are just dumb individual robbers. The most successful robbers right now might be people running crypto scams, people taking advantage of old people who, are easier to victimize.
Yes. And the crypto scam,
about that.
and that's another thing Trump can take credit for, is that he's thoroughly investing in crypto, and he's allegedly met up with a wealthy Arabian who made some sort of quid pro quo, a kind of arrangement so he would invest in Trump's crypto company.
Yeah, so that they give Trump has his net worth, the net worth of him plus his family has gone up by $5 billion so far this year. It'd be 6 different crypto schemes, and it doesn't cost the people giving him this money that much, because you start a crypto coin, you put Trump's name on it, you give Trump 25% of the action. With Trump's name on it, the suckers pile in, they drive up the price. Trump's net worth goes up by another $1 billion. Now that billion, you can't pull it out because as soon as you try to pull it out, people freak out and the value goes to zero. So maybe out of the $1 billion that Trump is worth on paper, maybe if they do it in a smart way, maybe they can get 200 million out of it.
It comes back to the oldest game. Yeah, it comes back to the oldest scam that I was talking about with Jim, since he was the first guest here, and I did it online, and I saw that today apparently was a day on the calendar that some people were thinking the rapture was going to take place, and all along those lines. So you got ministers that will tell you that if you send them a certain amount of money, that they will not go to heaven at that particular time, or all along those lines. You got people that are trying to predict dates that even the Bible itself says nobody knows the day.
All right, so I have a big old, I'm going to show you my mosaic Jesus. I like mosaics. And so I bought this one. This is a.
Rick is a science guy.
Yeah.
Can you see Jesus
Oh
here?
yeah.
Yep.
All right, this is a giant Jesus that I got for cheap because it must have fallen off the wall someplace because it's super heavy and got a bunch of pieces knocked off. And I don't believe in Jesus. I'm Jewish, so and I'm sciencey. But even so, I talk to my office Jesus and say, "Can you please rapture all the jerks in America out of here so they quit making everybody else crazy?"
Well, there is historical evidence for a man that was probably called Yeshua at the time, because Jesus is not an Aramaic name, and Yeshua was during translations into Hebrew, it was shortened to Yeshu, and then when it was translated to Greek and other languages, you got Jesus, and you can still see, Jesus is kind of a Spanish pronunciation of it. So it's what we think of as Jesus, and I took a course at Stanford but the Yeshua was almost certainly a real person, and probably a very, very loving and kind minister. You might even call him a radical rabbi, because beyond
Jesus and Moses were probably considered radical for their time. I was even reading another article, I think that was yesterday, that was talking about the connection between Jesus and God, and how he might have even done more in terms of the biblical story than people give him credit for and everything. So they're basically saying that he is part of that Trinity, was involved in his own creation and everything along those lines, if I understood the story. But
I even have a show pitch called Old Jesus. And you go back to Bible times, and they got Jesus up on the cross, and Jesus and his followers are like, this is kind of bullshit. And they decide, they bonk the guard on the head. And they switch out Jesus with somebody else. They pull him off the cross. They take him away. Now Jesus is in trouble with God because he was supposed to die up there. And God's like, no heaven for you. You just hang out on earth in perpetuity. So Jesus has been around now. We join Jesus in modern times, and he's aged a little bit, not a lot, but and now he's played by Sam Elliott, with his long Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's a guy who's a loving, kind guy, but who was not born yesterday, was born 2,030 or some years ago. So he's kind of like the A-team. Like, if you can find him and ask him for help, he's more than willing to help.
But he's not advertising.
He's
hanging out. He's drinking tequila someplace. But if you can find the cantina, he's in. You can.
Okay. So keep that in mind. If your day's going bad, you never know. You can turn around.
Get rescued and everything like that if the day is going bad and all along those lines. So that is a possibility and all along those lines. But yeah, we get ready to wrap up shortly. I've got another show to get ready to start, but y'all can go continue wrapping up while I'm getting her started, because she's going to talk about actually a loss in her life and everything like that. She lost her son. She does a show that's very Afrocentric focused, usually about history and everything, but she lost her son, I think it was the middle son, to a heat stroke not that long ago.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah. So it's Mama Noni of the Saint Sia show, here on the network. I think we call it the Mama Noni Live Show or something like that. But she was definitely the one that reached out to me and said, I need to do this show because it's helping me with my healing and everything like that. So sometimes
Yes.
things like this can help in the healing process as well.
Well, tell her peace and harmony for me.
And from me too.
I will definitely do that.
And from my office, Jesus.
And from the Office Jesus as well. Because the Office Jesus can help in the process as well. Well, y'all can bounce out whenever y'all want, and I'll wrap it up as soon as I can.
All right. See you tomorrow. Thank
Great
you.
to see you, Rick. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. you.